My name is Emily, and I am 29 years old. Growing up, I always felt like an outsider in my own family. While my older brother, Jason, was praised for every achievement and my younger sister, Chloe, was treated like a princess, I seemed to be the one everyone blamed whenever something went wrong. At family dinners, my opinions were ignored. At holidays, my gifts were clearly afterthoughts. Even when I earned a scholarship to college, my parents barely acknowledged it before changing the subject to something Jason had done. For years, I convinced myself that I was imagining it. I told myself that every family had favorites and that maybe I was just being sensitive. But deep down, I knew the truth. I was the black sheep. The only person who treated me differently was my grandmother, Margaret. Grandma never made me feel invisible. Whenever I visited her, she listened to every story, remembered every detail, and encouraged me to believe in myself. She often told me, "The people who underestimate you are usually the ones who understand you the least." At the time, I thought she was simply trying to make me feel better. I had no idea those words would eventually change my life. When I was 23, I graduated from college and started working at a small marketing agency. The pay wasn't great, but I was proud of supporting myself. Meanwhile, my brother received financial help from my parents for a new house, and my sister got assistance, opening a boutique. I never received anything. Whenever I brought it up, my parents would say I was independent and didn't need help. It sounded like a compliment, but it felt like an excuse. Years passed, and the distance between me and my family grew. I still attended birthdays and holidays, but I felt more like a guest than a daughter. Conversations were awkward. My achievements were rarely discussed. Most of the attention went to my siblings. Grandma noticed. One afternoon, while we sat on her porch drinking tea, she looked at me and asked a question that caught me off guard. "Do you ever feel alone in this family?" I laughed nervously. "All the time." To my surprise, she nodded. Instead of denying it, she admitted she had seen it for years. That conversation lasted nearly 3 hours. For the first time, someone in my family acknowledged what I had experienced. Grandma didn't criticize anyone directly, but she made it clear that she understood my pain. Before I left, she squeezed my hand and said, "One day, everything will make sense." I didn't know what she meant. 2 years later, Grandma's health began to decline. I visited her every weekend. Sometimes we talked for hours. Other times, we simply sat together quietly. My siblings visited occasionally, but their visits were brief. They were busy with their own lives. Despite her condition, Grandma remained sharp and observant. One evening, she asked me to bring an old wooden box from her closet. Inside were photographs, letters, and documents dating back decades. She smiled as she looked through them. "These tell the story of our family," she said. I spent hours listening to memories about relatives I had never met and events I had never heard about. It became one of my most treasured experiences. A few months later, Grandma passed away peacefully. The loss devastated me. At the funeral, everyone spoke about how much they loved her. My siblings shared emotional stories. My parents cried. Yet something felt strange. Many of the people expressing affection had rarely spent time with her during her final years. After the funeral, life seemed to return to normal. Then came the phone call. The family attorney requested that everyone attend the reading of Grandma's will. I didn't think much of it. Grandma had never been wealthy. She owned a modest home and lived comfortably, but there was no indication of a massive estate. When the day arrived, the entire family gathered in the attorney's office. The atmosphere was tense. My brother looked confident. My sister seemed excited. My parents appeared certain about how everything would unfold. The attorney began reading. Grandma had left several personal items to different relatives. Jewelry, photographs, keepsakes, and small financial gifts were distributed among family members. Everything seemed normal. Then the attorney reached a section labeled Personal Statement. He paused and adjusted his glasses. This message was written by Margaret specifically to be read aloud. The room became silent. The attorney started reading Grandma's words. She spoke about family, character, kindness, and integrity. She explained that true love was demonstrated through actions rather than words. Then she addressed something nobody expected. She wrote that over the years, she had carefully observed how family members treated one another. She mentioned seeing favoritism. She mentioned seeing selfishness. She mentioned seeing people who only appeared when they needed something. The room grew increasingly uncomfortable. Then came the sentence that changed everything. Grandma stated that one family member consistently showed genuine care without expecting anything in return. That person was me. I froze. My siblings exchanged confused looks. My parents stared at the attorney. He continued reading. Grandma described every weekend visit, every hospital appointment, every conversation, and every moment we shared during her final years. She wrote that I never asked for money, favors, or rewards. I simply showed up. Tears filled my eyes. But the biggest surprise was still coming. The attorney turned the page. According to Grandma's will, I was named the primary beneficiary of her estate. The room exploded with reactions. My brother immediately protested. My sister demanded an explanation. My parents looked completely stunned. The attorney calmly continued. Unknown to most of the family, Grandma had inherited valuable property years earlier from a distant relative. She had also made several successful investments over decades. Her estate was worth far more than anyone imagined. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Neither could anyone else. My brother argued that the decision wasn't fair. My sister insisted Grandma must have been influenced. But the attorney revealed something important. Grandma had updated her will multiple times over several years, always making the same choice. Her decision was deliberate. There was no mistake. There was no manipulation. There was only Grandma's final wish. After the meeting, my family treated me differently. At first, they suddenly became friendly. People who rarely called began reaching out. Relatives I hadn't heard from in years wanted to reconnect. The change was obvious. And honestly, it hurt. For years, I had wanted acceptance. Now that acceptance seemed tied to money. I didn't know who genuinely cared and who saw me as an opportunity. A few weeks later, I found another surprise. While sorting through Grandma's belongings, I discovered a sealed envelope with my name on it. Inside was a handwritten letter. I sat alone in her living room and carefully unfolded the pages. Grandma explained that she knew her decision would create tension. She knew people would question her motives. But she wanted me to understand why she made her choice. The inheritance wasn't a reward for being perfect. It wasn't compensation for how I had been treated. It was recognition of character. She wrote that throughout her life, she learned an important lesson. The people who stand beside you when there is nothing to gain are the people who truly care. She believed I embodied that principle. At the end of the letter, she wrote something I will never forget. Never measure your worth by how others treat you. Sometimes people fail to recognize value until someone else points it out. I recognized yours long ago. I cried harder than I had at the funeral. Not because of the money, because for the first time, I felt seen. In the years that followed, I used part of the inheritance to start my own business. I invested carefully, supported causes Grandma cared about, and created a life built on independence and purpose. My relationship with my family gradually improved, but it was never quite the same. Some wounds take time to heal. Some never fully disappear. Yet I no longer felt like the black sheep. Grandma's secret wasn't really about money. It was about truth. She showed me that being overlooked doesn't mean you're unworthy. Being underestimated doesn't mean you're incapable. And being different doesn't mean you don't belong. Sometimes the person who believes in you the most is quietly watching from the sidelines, waiting for the right moment to remind everyone exactly who you are.